So in today's session, we like to see that what are the implications for heuristics and related biases which people use or in which people are biased in their decision making, and in particular, we will try to see that what will happen to the investment decisions of the investors in financial market for using the heuristics and biases. So from earlier lecture, you probably can recall that we mentioned some heuristics and related biases, which include the familiarity, then representativeness, then anchoring. You probably can recall these biases. And these biases can lead to some market anomalies. You probably can recall that momentum reversal, which come from overreaction and underreaction. This also stem from the representativeness bias, which is part of the heuristics related biases. So in the first part of our today's lecture, we try to see the familiarity bias, and most of us are biased with our familiar issues or familiar part or familiar topic. So we'll try to see what is the implication of familiarity bias in case of financial decisions. So it has been found in many studies, and you can also look at your portfolio and your relatives' portfolio that it has been found that the domestic investors tend to hold more of the securities which are their domestic securities, and their portfolio contains less foreign securities, and they are highly concentrated in domestic securities. So for example, it has been found that American investors hold in their portfolio mostly the US securities, which are listed in their market and also which do business in their territory. And same thing has been found in Japan, and same thing has been found in UK investors case. So you can also see that Bangladeshi investors is very common, and apart from other restriction, it is very common that 100% of our investment are domestic investment. We do not have any foreign investment. So we'll try to see what is the reason and what is the nature of this kind of very high concentration in domestic securities. What are the reasons? So one consequence of doing this is that we are missing the chance, or we are missing the opportunity to diversify our portfolio across the countries or across the locations. So it has been found that the globalization has made the countries connected to each other, but it has been found that the correlation of investment or the correlation of security market between countries is on an average close to 0.5. So you see that when there is a correlation less than one, there is the opportunity to diversify, or there's the opportunity to make diversification to diversify the risk. So you see the average correlation between the countries in the world is close to 0.5. So it is possible to diversify our portfolio and make risk-adjusted return by diversifying our portfolio by making investment across the countries. But for familiarity bias, as we are heavily concentrated on domestic investment, we forego this kind of gain, we forego this kind of diversification benefit. So this is the findings from one of the studies made by Friends and Poterva. Can you recall the Pharma Friends? Can you recall the Pharma Friends, Eugene Pharma, and there is another co-author Friends. That Friends is here, Kenneth Friends. Okay, so they made in a study in using the data of 1981, and this study was published in 1991. So what they have found, we will try to see in relation to the familiarity bias. So they have reported the weight of each of these market in the world stock market capitalization. So it has been found that US stock market capitalization is 47.8% of the global stock market capitalization. And Japan has 26.5% and UK has 13.8% and so on. Remember, these are the data from 1989, okay? So it has been found that a typical US investors in his or her portfolio holds 93.8% of US securities, and his holding of other securities of other countries are very low in percentage form. And similar case has been found in case of Japanese investors. You see their portfolio, 98.1% investment is in Japanese securities. And in case of UK investors, you see their average holdings of UK securities is 82%. So among these three investors from three different countries, which country investors tend to have less familiarity bias? I have asked a question. Among these three investors from three different countries, which investor tend to have less familiarity bias?
Sir, UK investors?
Exactly. So, so if I have this kind of data from Bangladesh, you will see that close to 100%, this percentage is close to 100%. So you might ask, what are the reasons? Why US investors are preferring US securities? Why Japanese investors are preferring Japanese securities? Or why should Bangladeshi investor prefer Bangladeshi securities? So one typical reason which is cited commonly, that is the excessive optimism about the prospects of domestic market. So people tend to believe that which is familiar with me, or the securities which is familiar with me, I believe that, or I like to believe that I have better information about that security, and I'm optimistic about this security relative to the security of other country, whatever that country can be, US, or that country can be Singapore. As my domestic country is more familiar, I believe that domestic securities tend to outperform. So this is one of the reasons. why people are exhibiting home bias. So specifically out of the familiarity bias, it is specifically home bias. People prefer the securities which are listed in their home countries or home countries market. Okay. And between two securities, one security is domestic, another security is foreign. So people tend to feel comfort when they make investment in the domestic securities because they believe that I have access to some private, I have better access to the information of the security which is domestic relative to the security which is foreign. So say for example, if I offer you to invest in two securities, say one security is UK security and another security is Bangladeshi security, and I have given you the information that they tend to perform equally in coming years. But it has been found that you are very likely to pick the security which is Bangladesh security if you are a Bangladeshi investor. And if you are a UK investor, regardless of the equal performance of two securities in coming years, you are very likely to select the UK security if you are a UK citizen. And these are some behavioral explanation for familiarity bias. Why people exhibit home bias. These are some behavioral explanation. Okay, you see, these are some behavioral issues. Okay, so as a rational person, or if you are in a classical finance believer or traditional finance paradigm, you tend to look for the rational reason. Why should people prefer domestic investment over the foreign investment? Why? What is the reason? What might be the rationale apart from this behavioral explanation? So you tend to look for some fundamental reason. So these are some fundamental reason. So this one is the fundamental reason. So what kind of fundamental reasons come into play for this kind of concentration on the domestic securities? So one issue is the restriction on the capital movement. You probably have learned from your foreign exchange and international risk management course. Have you taken this course? Anyone? Foreign exchange and international risk management?
No, sir.
Anyone? Okay. Have you heard about the balance of payment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you might have heard about the current account and capital account. You might have heard about the current account and capital account. So we have explicit restriction on the capital account outflow. Capital account outflow. This is restricted from Bangladesh. So as an individual investor, you cannot make investment, long-term investment by transferring fund to other countries from Bangladesh. But inflow is open. So you might ask that how some companies are making investment in African countries or South Asian countries, how? So the reason is that the central bank has given a special permission to them. So as an individual, we are not allowed, or institution without the special permission, they are not allowed to make their capital investment out of Bangladesh. Okay, so it is legally restricted. So in that case, what will you see? Bangladeshi investors will concentrate on Bangladesh securities or the foreign securities? If it applies in Bangladesh, there is a restriction. What will you see? What Bangladeshi investors will do? Will they concentrate on Bangladeshi securities? So it may not be only the behavioral reason that they are preferring the Bangladeshi securities. That's why they are concentrating on Bangladeshi securities. So apart from the behavioral reason, it might be the case that there is a restriction on capital account outflow. Okay. And but the thing is that these restrictions are gradually shrinking, and it has been very common to make the cross-country investment. So that's why the rational reason for exhibiting home bias for this kind of reason is not very strong. This kind of explanation is not very strong nowadays. Okay. Then differential trading cost. So you know that if you make trading, you have to incur trading cost with the broker. And in addition to the broker's trading cost, you have to keep it in your mind that there is also a risk from or transaction cost you might face for making investment in foreign currencies. So if you see that the trading cost in foreign countries is cheaper relative to the trading cost in domestic countries, obviously people will go for investing in foreign country securities. So sometimes you will see, say for example, you are a UK investor, so you have made investment in US securities. So over the years, you have made gain in your investment, say 15%, but you will see that at the same time, UK currency, Great Britain pound has appreciated over this period from say from 105 to 119. You might see that for you have incurred loss in foreign exchange, say 20%. Though you have incurred positive performance in investment, but in terms of your domestic currency, when you are planning to returning your return, you see your net return is minus 5%. So if you make investment in domestic country, would you incur this kind of risk, foreign exchange risk? Okay, so that is another fundamental reason. Okay, then differential tax rate. Differential tax rate is another reason to why people prefer domestic securities, but it has been found that though there is a tax on there is a withholding tax on the dividend, which will be repatriated from the foreign countries. But at the same time, you might have some tax credit benefit. So in net percentage, this is not a very influencing reason that why people should prefer only the domestic investment. So that's why this fundamental reason have become very weaker explanation for the home biasness of people. So that's why it has been mentioned that they are playing a very minor role nowadays. Okay. So based on the actual allocation of US investors, Japanese investors, UK investors, France, Germany, and Canada investors, based on their actual allocation, you probably can recall there is a portfolio optimization concept. You probably have heard about the portfolio class. Have you heard about this from your investment class? That by optimizing your portfolio, you can determine how much you have to invest in each of the securities. You can determine the weight. Say weight one means how much you have to invest in security one, how much you will invest in security two. Have you heard about that? It is possible to calculate this weight, that how much you have to allocate in each of the securities. Have you seen this kind of formula? Say, for example, sigma 1 divided by sigma 1 plus sigma 2. Have you seen this kind of formula? I'm not writing what is that.
ওই রিটার্ন অন ইনভেস্টমেন্ট ক্যালকুলেট করার সময় তো অনেক সময় ওয়েটেড এভারেজ কস্টটা হিসাব করে করা হয়, তো ওই পোর্টফোলিওর সাথে এভাবে রিলেশন করা যায়।
Yeah, but have you seen that it is possible to determine the weight? Weight means how much you have to invest in a particular security to make a certain percentage of return in your portfolio. Have you taken your investment course?
No, sir.
Okay, in that case, it is not likely. Okay. So what I like to see, what I like to mention, that it is possible. Say, for example, you are mentioning that my expected return is 15%. That means I want to generate the 15% by assuming, say, 5% standard deviation. Say you have mentioned this kind of target. So by using this, it is possible to use the solver function in Excel to determine the optimum weight for security 1, for security 2, say, for example, up to security 10. It is possible to determine how much you have to invest for this kind of return in your, the aggregate return on your portfolio and aggregate risk of this on your portfolio. So it is possible. So say, you already have made an allocation. You already have made an allocation as an investors. So based on that allocation, it is also possible to determine the expected return you are expecting, and to determine the expected risk you are assuming. Based on the allocation, it is possible. And alternatively, based on the expected return and risk, it is also possible how much you have to allocate in each of the securities. Okay. So based on the actual allocation of US, Japanese, and UK investors, what authors developed that how much expected return they want to achieve by making the allocation. So it has been found that US investors want to achieve 5.5% return from his investment in US securities. It has been possible to find out based by seeing his allocation. So you see, this is the topmost expected return, say 5.5%, which is the second highest. This is the second highest, 4.7%. So based on his allocation, it can be argued that US investor is preferring US investment over Canada investment because he is expecting that his US investment will outperform the Canada investment by 0.8%. Does it imply this? Based on the allocation, it has been found that he has set the expected return like this. I mean, his expected return are like this. From US, he wants to get 5.5%. From Canada, he wants to get 4.7%. So what is he actually expecting? He is actually expecting that US investment will outperform the Canada investment by how much? 80 basis point. Is it 80 basis point? You know the basis point? 5.5 minus 4.7. So in the same way, if I ask you how much outperformance Japanese investors are expecting from their Japanese investment relative to the UK investment. How much higher, or in how much in terms of basis point? Japanese investors are
2.8.
expecting 2.8. So is it 280 basis point? 280 basis point. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So note that 1% is equal to 100 basis point. So small percentages are always expressed in terms of basis point, and it is a very familiar term in the financial market, basis point. Okay. So one thing you see in common that US investors are expecting highest percentage of expected return from their US investment. Japanese investors are expecting highest percentage of expected return from their Japanese investment, and UK investors are expecting highest percentage of return from their UK investment. Is it true? Have you got the proof? Have you got the proof
Yes, sir.
relative to their expectation from other countries, right? Okay. Have you got the answer of this argument? They are exhibiting excessive optimism about the prospect of their investment in domestic market. Yes. Okay. Now we like to see, it has been found that in addition to the people concentration on their own country investment relative to the investment in other countries, it has also been found that within a country, there is within a nation, intra-nation, people have home bias for their region. People have bias, people have preference to their particular region. Say, for example, someone is from Rangpur and he is preferring RFL because he believes that RFL company houses or RFL company, though it has office in Dhaka, but it has their primary, or it has their mother manufacturing plant at Rangpur. That's why I believe that, or I'm more familiar, or I feel more comfortable with investing in RFL. Have we got it? So it is
Yes,
kind of home bias within the region. And at the same time, you probably have heard about the Western Marine Shipyard, right? Have you heard about this company in DSC? Western Marine Shipyard. So this company is a Chittagong-based company. So some Chittagongian investors might believe that I feel more comfortable to make investment with a Chittagongian company because I believe that I have more access to information of this company, and I will see that if anything or any problem happens, I will be the first person to know about this because I am the neighbor of this company. That's why people tend to invest in the securities which are based in their home. Okay. And there is an example from the AT&T company. You probably have heard about this company name, which is a telecommunication service providing company. So in 1984, for the antitrust reason, the regulator has made it mandatory for this company to make the divestiture. So divestiture is meaning that this company, though divestiture is meaning separating out or selling out a particular unit of a company, but here what they did actually, by separating the AT&T company, they made seven regional exchanges, So these baby bells means telephone exchanges. So there are two companies. In one company, there is a name Bell. So Bell has come from that company name. So there were seven company, or in short, seven exchanges were set up by breaking out this company. It has been found that though if there are no familiarity bias, what we would see that there is no concentration of investment in one regional company by the investors of that region. Say, for example, if there is no familiarity bias, say, for example, this company was based on the southeastern region, this company, Bell South. So we would see that southeastern investors, I mean the investors who are in southeastern United States, they will not make the large investment in Bell South, rather they make proportional investment in other, say, south, they make investment in south, east, west, north, and they will make proportional investment to each of these. But it has been found that the investors from southeastern United States, they make significant investment in the south, I mean this one, Bell South. So this is kind of regional basis home bias. Okay. So note that, is it good to exhibit this kind of bias? Is it good to make this kind of bias? So we will give the answer later, but theoretically, we try to argue some issue that will it be good? Okay. So it has been mentioned what we just have understood, that southeastern investors made disproportionate investment in the Bell South exchanges. So we like to see that will it be good to invest in a familiar stock or familiar company or the home company or the local company. So say, for example, you are in a particular region. So if so you want to make overweighting to those securities which are based in that particular region in which you live. Say, for example, for some reason, the economic condition of the region is degrading. So you see, what will happen? The regional economic condition has gone down, and you see the company in that region will get affected. And it is also very likely the company in which you have made investment will be affected for this downgradation of the company. And at the same time, if you are in that particular region, you have to believe that your job will get riskier because of the economic underperformance in that particular region. So what you are doing, you are increasing your risk by making regional investment. I mean, by exhibiting home bias. Your income, I mean, your income from your job and your investment income, they have become highly correlated for this kind of bias. Have you got it? Have you got it? If you work and invest locally, your two income sources are highly correlated.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in that case, what would be the advice? To do just the opposite, making income in a particular region and making investment of securities from different region, so that what will happen? There will be weak correlation. There will be weak correlation. So for the investors in the baby bell, it would be better to make investment outside of their region, but they made just the opposite. So we have found that for familiarity bias, what people do, people make poor diversification. So before looking at that, whether the familiarity bias give some benefit to the investors, or how they actually perform by making investment in the local stock or the home stock, before looking at those numbers, we like to see the another aspect of familiarity bias. Okay. Say, for example, in Finland, there are two official languages. So language is a part of familiarity, remember. So you see, between Bangla and English, which one is very familiar with us? Bangla is more familiar with us. So if I provide you two annual report, one annual report is in complete Bangla and another annual report is in complete English. So as a reader, you will find which annual report more comfortable if you're a Bangladeshi investor?
Sir, actually English, because we have never seen annual report.
Okay, you have never seen. You have never seen, but actually, it also in our country, the annual report, a good number of parts are published in two languages, both Bangla and English. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. But we are not very familiar with the annual report published in Bangla, but you will see the annual report in Bangla for some companies. I can't mention right now. Say, for example, insurance company, which are playing very well for last couple of months. You'll see most of the insurance companies, they publish their annual report and the amount of explanation, most of the explanation they make are in Bangla. And their annual reports are not in a very good shape or good quality, the insurance companies. But in the banking companies, it is very common that you will see most of the contents in their annual report are in English, except few pages in Bangla. But in Finland, there are requirements that they have the official language, two official languages. One is Finnish and the one is Swedish. So usually their annual reports are not published in both official languages. I mean, both Swedish and the Finnish, okay? But in few cases, reports are only published in Swedish. So it has been found by controlling all other influencing factors. Can you recall the orthogonal I mentioned in the earlier class, orthogonalization? I mean, you are controlling or you are separating out other factors. Okay. So it has been found that Finnish investors, I mean, the investors in the Finland who are native in the Finland, they prefer those companies which publish their annual report in Finnish. So what is the reason? Finnish people find the annual reports published in Finnish language more comfortable, and they find it more familiar, they find it more convenient to read out. And it has been found at the same time, Swedish investors prefer companies whose language is Swedish. So you see, in our country, there is no, we do not have much weakness in English, but compared to our country, there are some countries which have very high level of weakness in English. Say, for example, China, say, for example, Japan, what they do. So you will see that Chinese investors will tend to prefer the companies which publish their annual reports in Chinese language. So it is a kind of familiarity bias they exhibit. But in our country, we do not have that kind of biasness to the company which publish their annual report in Bangla or which publish their annual report in English. Okay. And at the same time, another familiarity aspect is the culture. How familiar the culture is with me or with us as investors. So it has been found that if the CEOs are Finnish, I mean the CEOs are from Finland, those companies are preferred when the Finland investors are making investment. They prefer those companies which have the Finnish CEO. And at the same time, Swedish speakers prefer the companies which have the Swedish CEOs. So do we have this kind of bias that when we tend to believe that, or we tend to have excessive optimism when we see that some multinational companies in our country are appointing Bangladeshi CEOs in their companies? Have you observed any kind of reaction in the stock market?
Sir, Walton.
Walton, historically, their CEOs are from foreign countries or from our country? I mean, I know that their current CEO is from our country, but I do not know about their previous CEOs. Do you know that what about their other, I mean, the previous CEOs, from where they are from Bangladesh or they are from other countries?
No.
Okay. But I can recall that GP responded positively. I mean, the GP stock responded positively when Yasir Azman was appointed as GP CEO in recent years. On that day, if you look at the price graph of the GP on that particular day, when GP declares that they have appointed Yasir Azman as their CEO, who is the Bangladeshi CEO in GP for the first time, you can see that GP responded positively. Okay. So what I tried to mention earlier, that people tend to believe that why I am preferring a local company, why I am preferring a home company, why I am preferring a domestic company, because I believe that I have the informational advantage. I know more about that company which is closer to me. And you also tend to believe that if a company is near to you, or if a company is local to you, you might have better monitoring power, better monitoring capability. And you also tend to believe that you will have access to private information. So do you think this kind of belief is always, always reasonable? Believing that this kind of a statement, that if I invest in a local company, I will have better access to a private information?
No, sir, not at all.
Not at all? Okay. Say, for example, if the GP employees invest in GP, it is also a familiarity bias. If GP employees invest in the GP stocks, it is also part of the familiarity bias. So what do you think? They will believe this kind of statement, that I will have access to private information if I invest in GP because I'm an employee of this company?
No, sir.
No? But people tend to believe like this. People tend to believe like this, and
So they might believe, but rationally
it should not be true. But some countries, for example, in our country, where the insider trading is very rampant, this kind of belief is prevalent, right?
yes, sir.
Okay. So commonly, we believe that this kind of bias are mostly common in case of the retail investors or the individual investors. So in contrary to this kind of common belief, it has been found the mutual fund managers also. So you see, the mutual fund managers should be rational managers. Mutual fund managers are institutional fund manager. So they should be very rational, and irrational people will follow. I mean, the retail investors follow them, and there should exhibit some idealistic behavior. But it has been found that on an average, they concentrate on those companies, I mean the mutual fund manager, which is within this range, within the range from their office. So if a particular company is within this range to the mutual fund management office, it has been found that that company is very likely to be included in the portfolio of mutual fund. From the average distance, if the distance is 9 to 11% closer, and it is also likely that the firm will hold that security. And it has been found that it is very common, and in addition to the nearer distance, it is very stronger for those companies to be included in the mutual fund portfolio if that company is a very small company. So try to relate it. Between small company, we will make more discussion about this difference. So always tend to believe that there is a less information for a small company and more information available for big companies, always. So in which case you are likely to have a very high return opportunity when information is more available to all, or when there is an asymmetry of information. What do you think? Between small company and between big company, can you recall the Pharma Friends findings? Which stocks tend to outperform, the small companies stock or the big companies stock? Can you recall from the earlier class? Small companies tend to outperform, small company stocks tend to outperform, or the big company stocks tend to outperform? Anyone? We mentioned it several times. Yes, no? If you do not know, the answer is no. If you know the answer is yes, I know.
Can't recall it, sir.
You can't recall it, okay. The small firms tend to outperform the big firms, okay. So it was the findings, one of the findings of Pharma Friends. So there are behavioral explanation, there are rational explanation. So one of the rational explanation might be the information for small companies are more asymmetric. So when there is asymmetry of information, there is a possibility to capitalize the information asymmetry. But when there is a big company, that company has a very symmetric information distribution. So in that case, when the information is very available to all of the investors, it is very likely that that stock will be fairly priced. But the small company stock tend to be for some time underpriced, or for some time it may be overpriced because of the differences, because of the unavailability of the information. So as a investor, in which case you tend to prefer the smaller firm, because you believe that when the smaller firm is very close to you or is in the local region, in your local region, you believe that you have a informational advantage because you will know about this company in advance of other investors. So that is one of the explanation why mutual fund managers tend to have the local preference. So there is the answer that does it make payoff that if you make investment in the local companies or the local stock, does it pay more? So it has been found that the investors who have the local preference, they have generated significant payoff. And it has also been found that fund managers, mutual fund managers, on an average yearly, they earn 2.67% more if they invest in local investment or if they make investment in local companies. And if they avoid the local stocks, they underperform by 3% per year. So there is a reward if you have the ability to select those local stocks which will outperform. So it is guided that if you like to concentrate the local stocks in your holding, increase the selection ability. So it is the major skill of mutual fund manager, selection ability. So if they can select appropriate security within an industry, they can make a better allocation, and they can make the outperformance relative to the market index or relative to the market benchmark. And in case of retail investors, it is also been found that they also have some ability to pick the local stock or local companies which might outperform. And in another findings, it has been found that retail investors, like the money managers, I mean the mutual fund managers, retail investors also outperform when they make investment in the local stocks. How much outperformance? 3.2% per year relative to the return from their remote investment. So I will be taking a 10 minutes break, then we'll resume from this discussing the representativeness bias. Okay, so it's 8:25, we'll resume at 8:35. So another aspect of heuristics is representativeness. So we tend to believe that future will look like the past, and based on that, we apply the momentum trading strategy, and that is also an example of exhibiting representativeness biases. And also it has been found that you can probably recall from earlier class that when we tend to believe that a new thing is representative of existing thing, in that case, we tend to overweight the probability of the happening of that thing. And in opposite case, when we see that something is not representative of the existing thing, in that case, we underestimate the probability of happening that event. So in case of representativeness bias, we like to see some findings from studies that how investors exhibit representativeness bias and how it influences their decision-making process. So one kind of belief is common among us, that we tend to believe that good companies are always good investment. So what reason we tend to believe like that? A good company, why should a good company be a good investment? So we like to get return from a company which has a growth. So if a company has a growth, we should have a confidence that that company will give a higher return in future. So if we ask what are the reasons for that kind of growth, for which we are looking for. So good company has some characteristics which are responsible for the growth of that kind of company. So what are those reasons? Say one of the very critical reason of the growth of a company is the good management. If a company has a high quality management and very superior brand image, and it is very likely that that company will have a consistent growth of earnings. But you probably can recall that if I have a stock price, what can I do? I can break down this price into some future cash flows, into some discounted future cash flows. So from the basic finance, what we have learned that security is traded at a price which reflect the discounted future cash flows. So what we already have noted that a company will have a high growth if a company has a high quality management, high quality brand image. So note that what we just have mentioned are already reflected in the cash flow. And associated risks are also reflected in the risk-adjusted discount rate. It's not risk-adjusted discount rate. More appropriately, it is risk-adjusted expected return or risk-adjusted interest rate. So more precisely. So discount rate we like to use when we trade securities at a discount. Say a security face value is 100 taka, but we are selling at a discount at 93 taka at 7% discount. In that case, discount rate term is more appropriate. But here, more appropriate term is the interest rate, which reflects the expected return. So you see, these are already reflected in this equation. So we tend to believe, or we have to believe that obviously price is reflecting what is going to happen to this company. So if it is a rational belief that price is reflecting this future of this company, the company can be a good company, the company can be a bad company. Price is reflecting the future of that company. In that case, if the price reflects what is going to happen in future, will it be okay if you prefer a good company over a bad company, if price already reflects it? Have you got the question? If the price already reflects the good company future and price also reflects the bad company future, will it be okay? Will it be rational to prefer a company because that company has a good management, or that company is that company has a good brand image related to another company which does not have this kind of characteristic we just have mentioned? Anyone? You probably have learned about the basic valuation concept, right? When we go for buying a security, when we see that some security is not reflecting, some security price is not reflecting the future of that company, and that company security is underpriced relative to the valuation you are estimating, right? But what I just have mentioned, the price is reflecting the valuation. In that case, will it be wise to buy that company, whether it is a good or bad company? Have you got the question, or you want me to repeat the question? You see, there is a statement which is indicating you know these things better. You are there with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you think? Is it will it be reasonable or will it be rational to buy a company based on the strong image or based on the high quality management if the price of that company's security is already reflecting the future worth of that company's stock?
Sir,
Except for-
rational.
Rational. Why?
Sir, for the good image and well management quality.
Try to note that good image and brand are already reflected in the present value discounted model. You already have, when you make valuation, you already have calculated what is going to happen in the cash flow for having the good recognition, good brand image. You already have measured the cash flow considering that. So if you see, say for example, based on that, you have estimated that price is, say for example, 100 taka. Valuation is 100 taka, and that company is also trading, say for example, at say 101 taka or 100 taka. If you do not have nothing new, will it be a good investment? We have the buy side analyst, Mahmoud. Mahmoud, you are there? Mehdi Islam Shubo, you are there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what do you think that will it be reasonable to buy?
Sir,
What
To be
will
honest,
you do?
I didn't get the question properly. Can you please ask again?
Okay. The question is, when we make valuation, we already have this. We already have incorporated the good quality of the management, the strong brand image of the company, right, in the cash flow. Okay. So based on that, we have made a valuation, say for example, 100 taka. and that company stock is already trading at this price. So in that case, what we will mean that the price is reflecting the strong image or good management quality of that company already. So in that case, will it be good to purchase that company stock?
Sir, maybe yes, because fundamentally it is rational to invest there.
It is rational.
To invest there as they have already a good image and good future.
Remember, when it is good investment, say for example, that security is trading at a 80 taka and you are expecting that that security will be trading at 120 taka. In that case, it is a good investment. But if that security is, say for example, right now 120 taka, and after 2 months, it will also be 120 taka, will it be a good investment?
No, sir.
So in which case, will it be a good investment? So it is not necessarily true. Remember,
Might not be a good investment, but it won't be a bad investment either.
I have not given the option that will it be a bad investment. Okay. So before making the investment decision, you have to ask yourself that will it be good to buy or not? Okay. So we always make investment by looking at the price discrepancy. If we see that some stock is trading at a price which is underpriced relative to the valuation, or we go for making short selling, if we see that some securities are trading at a higher price relative to the real worth of that security, right? So can you recall the efficient market efficiency? We discussed about it in earlier class. Weak form of efficiency, semi-strong form, strong form of market efficiency. Can you recall? Yes, no? So it is difficult if we can't recall the earlier class because in market efficiency, it is the hypothesis that the price reflects the information. So if the price reflects the information, there is no opportunity to have the abnormal return. So if you cannot make the abnormal return, it will not be a very good investment. Okay. So one thing you have to mention, you have to note that this quality, good company and good investment, these are two separate things. In our country, you might see that good companies are not are giving good return, and the bad companies are not giving the good return. But remember, good companies and good investment are always two different things. Good companies tend to be fairly priced. So when some stock is fairly priced, it is very unlikely that you will have a very high percentage of return. So regardless of good or bad companies, if you see some securities is underpriced or overpriced relative to the price, real price or the fundamental price of that security, in that case, you are very likely to make a significant return. So these are not synonymous. Remember, good companies, good investment are not always synonymous. Okay. So good investment is separate thing, good companies is separate thing. So there has been a survey by the Fortune magazine on the senior executives by asking from them that in your own industry, make a rating of each of the companies in the industry based on this aspect: quality of management, quality of the products, innovativeness, long-term investment value, financial soundness, ability to attract, develop, and keep talented people, responsibility to the community and environment, wise use of corporate asset. So what you just have exhibited, it is a kind of representativeness bias. You are believing that good companies are good investment, bad companies are bad investment. So if the price reflects the worth of the company, there is no good or bad investment. If you make the investment in good company or if you make the investment in bad company. And this same kind of bias has also been exhibited by the managers. They believe that if the company has a high quality of management, that company will have a high long-term investment value. So we'll see, they have made rating out of this for these aspects. So 82% of the managers note that if the management quality of that particular company is good, that company has a very high level of attribute with respect to the overall quality. So this is a regression output from a paper, that paper, which is authored by these two famous authors. One is Shafrin, and the one is Statement. So Shafrin is a very common person in the behavioral economics. So it has been found that two regression. This is one regression, one table. This is another table. It is upper panel. This is bottom panel or lower panel. Okay. In this panel, the dependent variable is the value of a company in terms of long-term investment. So remember, this is based on the rating made by the managers in this survey. So it has been found that based on the outcome of the survey, management quality, you see the t-value. It is probably the t-value. T-value is a very high. Can you recall that when the t-value is greater than 2, that coefficient is significant, and these values are coefficient. So it has been found that management quality is strongly associated with the long-term investment value or investment value from a long-term from a good company. So it is also indicating the representativeness bias, and their belief is same, that they tend to believe that if the management quality is very good, that company will have a very high investment value. So that's why this is highly significant, and the correlation and the explanatory power of this regression is very high. At the same time, it has been found that the size of the company is positively associated with the investment value. So if the company is a big company, that company will have a high investment value. But at the same time, if that company has a high book to market, alternatively, if the company has a low book to market, that company will have a high investment value. You see the coefficient is negative. So when the company has a low book to market, low book to market. When a company has a low book to market, what are the two ways that a company can have a low book to market? Either the company has a very the company has a very low book value, but the company has a high market value. So which companies tend to have a very high market value relative to the book value? You probably have heard about it from our earlier lecture in the findings of the Pharma Friends paper. Can you recall the small firm, big firm, value firm, growth firm? We discussed about it. The companies which have a high market value relative to the book value, those companies are known as the growth companies. And the companies which have a high book value relative to the market value, those companies are value companies. So you see which companies tend to have higher investment value based on the survey. Growth companies or the value companies? Have you been able to identify the companies which are growth, which are value? If the market value is very high relative to the book value, that company is a growth company. So why investors are paying high price to that company? Because they are believing that that company will have a high growth rate in future. That's why they are paying high price, and that's why market price is a bigger number related to the book value number. So that company will be a growth company. So it has been found that growth companies will have a high investment value. Have you got it?
Yes,
Have you
sir.
got the findings? Okay. So let me help you to understand it from here. So we have found that management quality, this variable, management quality, this variable here, this variable, management quality and value as a long-term investment are very highly correlated. This is the only regression, this is the only regression from the management quality and the investment value. But in the second regression, this one, it has been found that these are significant and this value impact the perceived investment value. And the big companies, one characteristic is big, another characteristic is high growth firm. I just have mentioned when the book value is lower than the market value, those companies are high growth firm. So managers put higher rating to those companies who have the high, the large size and who have the low book to market. Management, the executives, remember, these are based on what? These are based on the survey answers given by the executives. They put higher value to the investment for having these characteristics. So what we are seeing, executives believe that if the company is a big company, that company will be a good investment. If the company is a high growth company, that company will be a good investment. Have you got it? They have believed that these are representative. If the company is a big and if the company is a high growth company, these are representative of the good investment. It is based on the comments or based on the survey report made by the executives. Have you got it? Okay. Now, recall the Pharma Friends findings. Pharma recall that small stocks give higher return relative to the big stocks. Now give me the answer to the question. Which companies have a small stock market capitalization? The small companies or the big companies? Small companies has a higher market capitalization or the big companies has a higher market capitalization? Are you familiar with the market
Companies.
capitalization concept? Okay, Walton is the largest company right now in terms of market capitalization, right? Or Robi, which one?
Sir, Walton.
Walton. So why? Because the number of shares traded in the market multiplied by the market price, that is the market capitalization. But if I ask you about another stock, say for example, Hokkani Pulp and Paper, that company is not in this category. That company is a small company. So why that company is a small company? Because their price multiplied by the number of traded securities, number of traded shares is much lower. So in Pharma Friends paper, they concluded that small companies outperform the big companies. But based on the survey comment by the executives, what they are doing, they are believing that which companies are good investment. If a company is big, they believe that that company will be a good investment. It is just the opposite of the Pharma Friends findings.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Pharma Friends, another findings is that if a company has a high book to market, that company is that stock is a value stock. High book to market, I mean, this ratio is a greater number, that the stock will give higher return relative to another stock which has this number is lower. So which stock has a higher number? The stocks which are value stock. So which stocks are value stocks? So if you see that market price is relatively lower compared to the book value, it is not necessarily true that, remember, it is not like that I am mentioning that it is book value is 10 taka, market price is say market price is say 5 taka. It is not like that. It can be like this. See this one, 10 to 15. Okay. But at the same time, if you see another stock, which is, say, for example, book value is say same 10 taka, but market value is say 500 taka. So this company is in which category? Growth category. This is stock. Remember, stock. This stock is in growth category, and this stock is in which category? Value category. Okay. So based on the comment by managers, which stocks they believe that will outperform? High growth, which are high growth, which have a higher market price relative to the book value. But what Pharma Friends found? Pharma Friends found that the stocks which have high book to market, or the stocks which are value stocks, that tend to outperform. Okay, so it is very common among the people and among all of us that we tend to believe that if a company is trading at a higher price, that company will be a good investment. And if the company is a very big, that investing in that company will be a good investment. Okay. Okay. Next one, next regression we like to see, that is what characteristics influence the management quality. So now the management quality is the dependent variable in this regression. Management quality is now dependent variable. And what are the independent variables? So one is the size, another one is the book to market. So it is the indication of value and growth, and it is the indication of the size. So you see both are significant, and both are significant. You see, both are significant. But which one is positively correlated, or which one is positively impacting the management quality? Size. Okay. So what does it indicate? Big company will have high quality of management. Does it indicate this? If a company is a very big, that company has a high quality management. If the company is a small, that company will not have high quality management. Does it indicate this based on the regression result prepared from the surveying the executives? Okay. What do you think? Big companies have a high quality management, or small companies have a high quality management? In generally speaking, what do you believe? What do you believe? Big company has a high quality management, or small company has a high quality management? There is a debate. I just like to know your opinion, your perception.
Sir, a big company with high quality.
Okay, generally speaking, right? Okay. Now, the Sonali Bank is the largest commercial bank, right, in our country? And if you compare it with the BRAC Bank, that is much smaller than the Sonali Bank. Which one you like to believe as a high quality management?
Sir, BRAC.
Okay. So there is a debate that is not always true, but generally speaking, big companies tend to have very high quality management. Okay. So why should we believe like that? Because high quality management has made that company bigger. And when company is a big, and that company gets more bigger by having the high quality management. Okay. So what we like to see that big companies, and it has been found that the companies which are big and the companies which have low book to market. Remember, if it is positive, in that case, we would say a high book to market. But if you see it is negative, that means we are interpreting in this way that if the company has a low book to market, in that case, that company has a high management quality. Okay. So if a company has a low book to market, that company is a value stock, or that company has a growth stock. If the company has a low book to market, I'm asking question from the previous discussion. If a company has a low book to market, that company is a growth, that company has a growth stock, or that company has a value stock, low book to market.
Growth stock.
Okay. So these companies are viewed as a good companies, good investment by the executives. Okay. So you already have mentioned that big companies have bigger because they have the high management quality. So it is very rational. And you see the growth companies, I mean, these companies are growth companies which are having the higher management quality. And you see the when the management quality is good, that quality of the management harnesses the growth, and that quality of the management impacts the growth of the company. Okay. Then we like to see another case how representativeness influences our trading strategy. So what we learned about the momentum in earlier class, can you recall? When we implement the momentum strategy, can you recall when it is momentum, when it is not momentum, or reversal? Anyone? Please respond. You can't recall. Your memory does not have a space for the behavioral finance class. Your memory should have a space for this course, previous class, lecture contents we discussed in class. Anyone? When it is momentum? I will be very upset if you do not respond within next 30 seconds.
Sir, can't recall it properly, but it's like trading while the share is going to be uptrend or right before it is going to downtrend. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right, you are exactly right. Okay. So when we tend to buy the securities which outperformed in previous months and tend to sell the securities which underperform in last couple of months or last past months, we tend to follow the momentum strategy. And the opposite is the reversal. So we shared the paper from Jagadish and Titman that if people follow the momentum strategy, between 3 months to 12 months holding period, it is possible to have the abnormal return, to have the excess return, which cannot be explained by any other factor, any other beta, say, for example, size factor, or for example, value factor, or the market beta. This cannot explain why someone is generating a higher return by purchasing the securities which outperformed in previous periods and selling the securities which underperformed in the previous periods. Okay, so this is kind of just evidence that why people follow the momentum strategy. That is the question. So related with the representativeness bias. So if a security, say, increases during this period, and now you are here, you like to believe that it will not move in this way as it outperformed in previous months. And if I buy the securities, it will also outperform in the coming months. So what I am doing, I am assuming that outperformance in this previous period is represented by the outperformance of the same security in the previous months. Because that security outperformed in the previous months, that's why I believe that that security will be outperformed in the coming months. Have we got it? How representativeness is linked here with the momentum? Yes, no? This is represented, this is this one. This is represented by what? This is represented by this. Okay. So a survey was made among the workers who are managing their own retirement money. So you can compare it with the pension fund, or sorry, not pension fund, pension money. So you have received the pension money from your employer. Now you want to make investment. So you are a respondent. So you have been given two options. I mean, you have the option to make investment into securities. So say one security is security A, another security is security B. And you have also been given some information that this security A and this security B will give a 10% return per year over the next 5 years. You have been given this information. So based on the future return, do these securities look same? Their prospects are same, security A and security B, based on the future outcome.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you have given an additional information that security A in last 5 years, it gave annual return of 5% on an average. And security B in last 5 years, average return in last 5 years was 15%. Now I'm asking question. If you are not follower of momentum, I mean, you are not exhibiting representativeness bias, will you prefer A over B or B over A, or you have no preference of either security?
Sir, no preference.
No preference, exactly. Now, if you're a momentum follower and you have the representativeness bias, what will you do?
Sir, B.
You will prefer the B because B outperformed A in the last 5 years, right? And
Yes, sir.
if you are just the opposite, reversal, I mean, you believe that the stock which outperformed in the previous months, that a stock will underperform in the future months. In that case, what will you do? You will prefer A. You will prefer A. Okay. Now you see, it has been found that out of the workers who are managing their retirement money, it has been found that most of the workers were the momentum chasers. Why? Because 64% of them preferred which one? This one, which outperformed in the last 5 years. Okay. And the issue is that at the same time, what may happen, a reversal may happen. But if you are representative bias exhibit, I mean, you are exhibiting representativeness bias, what will happen? You might underweight the contrarian. Remember, we mentioned the reversal. So who follow the reversal, they are the contrarian. I mean, all are believing that because these stocks outperformed in previous months, that's why these stocks will outperform in futures also. But you are differing your opinion from them. That's why you are contrarian. So what you are doing, you are believing that reversal will happen. So reversal percentage out of these workers are at 12%. So in that case, what happened? They are not maintaining the proper diversification. So from our academic evidence, it has been found that both are the evidence of momentum and reversal have been exhibited. So it has been found that if you hold a security which outperformed in previous months, if you hold that security between from this period, I mean from 3 months to 1 year, you will have higher return, I mean high positive excess return. And if you hold between this period from 3 to 5 years, in that case, I mean, in case of reversal, you will have higher excess return. So in this case, what will you do in case of momentum? You buy the outperforming and you sell the underperforming. And in case of reversal, what will you do? You construct a portfolio by selling the outperform. Selling means here short sell, okay? Selling the outperforming and buying what? Buying the underperforming. So these are just the opposite one, but opposite in terms of strategy, but I mean your direction, but in terms of holding period, they are not comparable. See, momentum has been observed during this period. That is kind of intermediate term from 3 months to 1 year. But reversal has been observed in longer term period from 3 to 5 year return. So these are not directly comparable. Okay. So what will you do? Will you follow the momentum or will you follow the reversal? So it has been suggested that you can construct portfolio by following both strategy. You can follow momentum for some portion of your portfolio, and you can also follow the reversal for some portion of some portion of your portfolio. If you still can maintain the 50-50 for momentum and reversal, it is good to go. Okay. So always it is not a good idea that an investment made or generated high return in previous months, that's why it will give higher return in coming months. It is not always good idea. So chasing past return is not always good idea. Okay. So there is another research findings for the momentum chasing, which is also related to that they preferred their employer stock. And we like to conclude our session by having concentration on the anchoring bias, which is another heuristics. So we gave the introductory concept of anchoring is like that. When you make decision, if you have some initial information from somewhere, you tend to overweight, or you like to come up with a number which is closer to that initial information. So we probably have discussed with the estimation of GDP growth in our country. And there is a study from the real estate appraisal, based on the study of real estate appraisal. So what happened to selected groups, randomly selected groups of real estate agents? So real estate agents are very likely to estimate the worth of the real estate property of you. So they have been separated into 2 groups, and they have been taken to a house, and they are asked that this is a house and this is the list price. I mean the quotation price, say municipality has given this list price. it is not like that you have mentioned that exactly this price has been mentioned by municipality, but this was a experiment. So two groups. So say group A and group B. So say group A has been asked that appraise the value of this house. I'm giving another information that the list price of this house is 65,900. Now give me some estimation that how much value you are thinking at which it should be traded, or how much value at which you are appraising. Okay, have you got the question which were asked to the real estate agents? This is the list price. Let me give this information, then give me another, give me your appraisal value, what value you are thinking that it is to be justified. Okay, and there's another group, there I are mentioned that the list price of the same house is 83,900. Now mention what value you will set for this house as an appraisal value, or at how much price or how much value you will appraise for this house. Have you got the situation, or have you got the context what were asked to the real estate agents?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Now, what do you think? If group A and group B come up with a appraisal value, which group will give a higher appraisal value if both groups are exhibited by anchoring bias?
Sir, group B.
Group B will give a higher appraisal value, and that exactly happened. That exactly happened. Okay. So, okay. You see the experiment here, outcome, that when the list price, this was mentioned, appraisal value made by the group A was 67,811. And when the high list price 83,900 was mentioned, the appraisal value estimated by the group B was 75,190. You see, they are given the higher value as a list price. That's why they put higher appraisal value. And the opposite thing happened here. Okay. But actual price was this one. Okay. So it is from this paper, which is referenced here. So the thing is that, do we exhibit the anchoring bias in financial decision? So it is very common in real estate. And if you ask initially a high price for a real estate, your perception for price will automatically be higher. Okay. And you see that if you go to two markets for the same product, but you do not know exactly what price it should be, so seller will offer a price, initial price. So what you want to do, you want to bargain. So in one market, the seller firstly offer the product at 500. So what will you, at which price you will bargain? You will bargain, say, for example, at 300 or close to 300. Okay, just for example. But in another market for the same product, seller offers the same product at 800 taka. So will you start bargaining at 300, or you will set your bargaining price at a higher price? What do you think?
Higher price.
So this is how anchoring bias affects our investment decision. Okay, this is just kind of from the shopping example, but it happens in our financial market. Say, for example, you are in a group, not in a group, say, for example, you are in a team. Okay. So your team is a buy-side team. So what you do, you analyze the securities and you evaluate the securities, and you want to set the price at which you will buy the security. Okay. So you have a reporting supervisor. So to whom you report, but supervisor is not part of your team. Okay. So supervisor has called this buy-side analyst team, and supervisor has mentioned by giving some information of a security, say for example, that security is G. So supervisor, after giving all the details of that security, supervisor has just mentioned in the closing of the meeting that I'm thinking that the price of that security will not be more than 550. Say for example, supervisor has just mentioned out of his general opinion. He has not made any valuation. But when buy-side analyst has started to make the real valuation, their mind always will look for some value out of their valuation model, which is closer to this. Have you got it? It actually happens. So to avoid the anchoring bias, what we'll have to do? You will have to be very objective. You should not keep it in your mind what your supervisor has mentioned in the meeting. Have you got it?
Yes, sir.
Actually, same thing happened in our inflation estimation by the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics. Okay. Say, for example, finance minister has mentioned that in next month, inflation will not be more than 5.5%. So Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, when they look for estimating the inflation in the next month, they want to come up with a number which is closer to this. So they will not differ in their opinion from the opinion made by the finance minister. Okay. So this kind of biases should be avoided. So these are anchoring bias, and these are also part of heuristics. Obviously, this helps us to make a decision in with less effort, less time. But we have to avoid this kind of biases, and we have to be objective in making estimation and in making any kind of decision, especially financial decision and investment decision. So that is all about. I like to close the session here.